All right, up here, guys, up here. Let's start going. So, this is a lot of what we did last class. We'll get through it pretty quickly. You can see this is only 7 slides, so I did not feel the need to do more examples of the same stuff. I just wanted to do a little more examples of stuff that's a little different. Okay? So, a lot of it will be the same. And then next we will talk about slope, so getting slope from the graph rather than making the graph from the slope. So stuff you already know, again, and it should go pretty quickly. Okay? All right, intercepts. So first, the y-intercept. The y-intercept is where the graph, or where your line, where the graph crosses the, being really loud, the y-axis. Okay, where the graph crosses the y-axis. And where this is always going to be when the other letter is 0. So when x equals 0. So if they've given you a equation and ask where the y-intercept is, all you have to do is change the opposite letter to a 0. And then you can figure out where that intercept is. Okay, so that's the exact same thing on the next one. It's just we're going to change 2 letters. Okay, so the x-intercept is where the graph crosses the x-axis, and that's where y equals 0. So x-axis, y equals 0. Okay, so every intercept that you write down will have a 0 in it. Every single one of them. If it's a y-intercept, it will start with 0, because x comes first in an ordered pair. If it's an x-intercept, then y will be 0. It will end with a 0. Okay, so here is almost an identical problem off of your test. Okay, your test might look more like this, though. So it might ask for all the intercepts. Okay, so a good point here is some of the problems on the homework say, what are the intercepts? I did not specify which intercept. So if it says, what are the intercepts, it would be this, this, and this. But some of them say, what are the x-intercepts? So then you would only answer the ones on the x-axis, okay? So if I asked just for the x-intercepts, that is where it crosses the x-axis. So that would be this one and this one. You have to put those in ordered pairs. So x-intercepts is where your y is 0, so that would be a -8. I'm not going to put it in parentheses. Oh, yes, I will. -8, comma 0, and 8, comma 0. If it asks for your y-intercepts, your y-intercept is down on the bottom. Because it's a y-intercept, your opposite letter will be 0, so your x is 0, and then your y is down at -7. Okay, this is one that's very commonly missed on the exam. For some reason, people just read the graph wrong. They might accidentally write down -7 on this. Okay, so just be aware of that. Be aware that people make that mistake. And I don't know why they make that mistake, but it happens a lot. And so just make sure you read your graph correctly. Double check these. Okay? It does not have to be in any specific order, but I would ask if you're going to write them down in an order, write them in order from left to right, or if it's all 3 of them, left to right, just so when I'm grading, they're all in the same order, so it's easier for me to read. Okay? So those are the intercepts. Again, they could ask you for all of them, or they could ask you just for the x and just for the y. Okay, now it says use the intercepts. Okay, this is different. So we are not doing y equals mx plus b here, even though it seems like you would want to. If it says these words, use the intercepts. Okay, so you have to pay attention to the directions on this. Because even if you get the exact same lines, If you don't use the intercept dots, then it will not count it right. Okay? If it says use the intercepts, this is what we want to do. Okay? I want you to create a box like this. Okay? And this is what a lot of times people just start referring to as the 0, 0 table or the diagonal zeros. Okay? So the intercepts, whenever it says intercepts, you write that down. Okay? Anytime that you see intercepts. This will give you the exact same line as y equals mx plus b, but because it asks you to use the intercepts, those are the dots we need to put on the graph. Okay, so now we can plug stuff in just like we did yesterday. There's an x, there's a y. So if we've been given an x, that is 0 minus 3y equals 6. 0 doesn't mean anything, so then we divide both sides by a negative 3. Y equals negative 2. So negative 2 goes here. There's our first point. Then we're going to fill out the bottom of the table. We've been given a y, so x minus 3 parentheses 0 equals 6. Anything multiplied by 0 just goes away, so that is x equals 6. Okay, so there are your 2 points. We're going to run 0, go down 2. There's my first point. And then we're going to run 6, go down 0. There's my second point. There's your line. Okay, again, your slope on this would end up being rise 1 over 3. But if you used this point and that point, it will not count it right. You have to use the ones on the axis when it says intercepts. Okay, so I will get a lot of emails, unless I make sure to tell y'all well today, that say, this is the exact line, why did I get it wrong? It's because you are not using the points on the axis. Okay, so read your directions and know what they're asking for. Okay, let's try again. So, let's assume the directions say using the intercepts. So we're going to use the intercept 0, 0 table. 0, 0. Okay, if I plug in a 0, what does that get me for the x? So 0 equals negative 2y. What is y? 0, because we would divide both sides by a negative 2. So 0 equals y. Now if we plug in a 0 for y for that second row, that is x equals negative 2 times 0. Negative 2 times 0 is 0, so x equals 0. Okay, so let's plot our points. So there's 0, 0, and 0, 0. So we don't have 2 points. We can't create a line with that. Anybody know what we could do to get a second point?
Z.
No, Z comes out towards you. Yeah. If you ever get zeros all over the place, just add one row and put any number you want in there. Any number that works. Right? So if I look at this 1, that's going to go here. And then we're going to divide it by 2. That's going to give me a fraction. That's harder to graph. Okay? I'm going to write that down just so we can see it. But 1 equals negative 2y. Divide both sides by a negative 2. So you can see y would equal negative 1/2. We don't want to graph that. Okay? So you're going to extend your table until you get to a whole number. So sometimes you just have to look at your table or look at your equation and see what would get a whole number. So we know that if we plug in to x, we're going to end up dividing it by a negative 2. So would 2 make it a whole number? Yes. So would 4, so would 6. Right? Anything that's divisible by that 2. So if I plug in a 2, that's 2 equals negative to y, divide both sides by a negative 2. Y equals negative 1. So there's my 2 points. So you use the points that are whole numbers. So there are my 2 points. So 0, 0. And then over 2, down 1. So another way that you could do this is, at this point, because we got 0, 0, 0, 0 on that table, we're not going to use both intercepts because there's only one intercept. So if you would like to, at that point, instead of extending your table until you get whole numbers, just do y equals mx plus b on that. That is allowed. Okay? But if it says intercepts, we have to at least include the intercepts. All right, and then these, I just talked to you about them at the beginning of class. If it's ever a letter equals a number, that is axis at. So axis, x-axis, at 3. So we're going to go on the x-axis. Again, that is almost always labeled. Put a dot at 3 on that axis. And then we're just going to draw a perpendicular line to that. So like this. And there is your answer. On my math lab, I know you need 2 points, so you can just put 1 right above it, and it'll do the same thing. Okay, so same thing here. That is a letter equals a number, so this is the axis you're going to go on. And we're going to go at negative 4. So on the y-axis, at negative 4, we're going to put a dot. And we're going to draw a line perpendicular to that. Was a question like that on the quiz? Yes? Yes, there was? Okay. So next class, I need to make sure to go over that like I did with y'all before the quiz. Okay. All right. So that's how easy that should be. The only thing that gets harder is if you have 0, 0, 0, 0. Then you can add to the table or just go back to y equals mx plus b. People tend to miss this because they don't read directions. Okay? Because these will be intermixed on a review, right? Some will say use intercepts. Some will say you use y equals mx plus b. Yeah?
Is the homework posted or no?
It's about to be. Okay? So that's a pretty quick one.